Alright guys, enough fooling around. I have been hinting at this video for quite a while. It is finally time to review my Ampero amp modeler from Hotone, the bleeding edge of guitar multi-effects boards. Okay, first things first, I call this company Hotone. Some people call it Hotone, some people call it Hot One, maybe Hotone if you want to give it a little exotic vibe to it. I like to call it Hotone. And nobody from the company, like nobody officially, has ever told me how to pronounce it, so I'm going to pronounce it Hotone. Anyway, regardless of the company name, this is the Ampero amp modeler and multi-effects board. And when I say multi-effects board, what I mean is it is an amp modeler with 64 different amp models. It has a huge array of effects. It's got cabinet simulation. It's got a looper. You can use it as an audio interface. It's MIDI controllable. It's got a drum machine. Let's just say it's got a ton of features in it. And to be totally honest, there's no way I'm going to be able to show every feature in this video. So I really want to encourage you guys to just read more about it with the link that I'm going to put down in the video description below. Now, before we actually get into the features, one thing to keep in mind is that this unit is not just for electric guitar. You can use it for electric guitar, but you can also use it for bass. They have a bunch of bass amplifier models on here, and you can also use it for acoustic guitar. So like I said, there's no way I can go through everything in this unit, but I'm going to go through, I'm going to kind of try and describe as many of the features as possible, and then I'm going to demonstrate some of my favorite features. And now I mentioned that I'd sort of been hinting at this review for a while in some of my previous videos because I had been using this unit to do some guitar reviews that I've done like in the past month. And honestly, when I get a new piece of equipment, that I'm going to review, I typically, will plug it in before I do the review and go through it, learn how it works and get some ideas of how it sounds and everything. But when I did that for this, some of these tones and everything, they sounded so good that I wanted to use them on other reviews, like where I'm reviewing another piece of equipment, because it just helps me present that other thing even better when like the amplifier thing that I'm using sounds really good. And that's what happened with this situation. And that's sort of my favorite number one feature about this thing is the sound and the tones that you can get out of it. And I'm going to give you guys some playing demos in just a little bit here so you can hear some of that for yourself. But yeah, just as a general overview, this is a multi-effects board that is an amp modeler. So you've got your amp models, then you've got all of these different effects that you can add. I think they say something like 240 different effects that's in this thing. So you can create these patches. Of course, there's a bunch of presets in here, which a lot of them sound really good, but you can also create a patch just from the ground up where you pick your amp, you can add like a boost pedal, all kinds of different effects, delay, reverb, all that stuff. And then you can also set up cabinet simulation on here too, because, generally the way you use this thing is you would be running this out to a recording interface or a PA, or you can also run it out to like a power amp or something like that, or into like the effects return of an amplifier if you just want to use it as a more traditional amp setup. But because you can plug this into, again, a recording interface or a PA, you can set up cabinet simulation on here, so it's going to sound as if you're, miking a traditional amp or something like that. And you can customize and change all that stuff with this board here. Now, one of the many cool features that I want to focus in on here is actually the looper in this thing. So let's take a quick look at that. Now, you activate the looper by pressing down these two buttons here, and then that brings up this screen, which has all of your looper controls. And just look at this. You've got a half speed section, so you can play back whatever you just recorded at half speed. You can reverse it. You can also play this along with a drum pattern. And you even have this option down here, which will synchronize whatever you're playing to the tempo, the tempo that you have set or the tempo of the drum pattern. So let's say you record something and you go a little bit long, like you stop a little bit late or early or something, it will trim whatever you recorded to make it synchronized with that tempo. Now, the other thing that's really awesome on here is if you look down here, there's this pre-post setting. Essentially what that does is it changes where you are looping the dry signal of the guitar only. It changes from that, where that's pre-mode, and then you switch it into post mode where it's going to loop the signal with all of the amplifier settings and effects you have on there. So in that case, you can record one loop with any particular guitar tone, and then you can change the amp and then record the next layer of the loop with a different amp sound, completely different tone, and it'll retain the different tones. Okay, and now let me give you a quick example of just how easy it is to use the looper. So I also mentioned there that you can sync the looper with a drum pattern. This thing has a bunch of different drum patterns in it, and the drum patterns and the drum machine built into this has a really sort of old school vibe that I absolutely love. Okay, so obviously there's a lot more features I want to talk about, but let's go ahead and listen to some of the sounds and tones that we can get out of this thing. Now keep in mind, I'm just giving you like a small taste of the different presets and everything that's built into this thing. But these are just some of my favorite sounds that are in the presets of this thing. Now for the demo, obviously I'm using this and I'm running this direct into my recording interface. So you're going to hear it like with the cabinet simulation and all of that stuff. Also, I'm going to be playing my Harley Benton Fusion 2 guitar, and the backing track that I've been using is from one of my top 3 Greek shredders, Panos Arvanitis. He's a great neoclassical guitarist from Greece that I've talked about before, so if you want to check out that backing track, I'll have a link to it in the video description below. If you enjoy videos like this and you have not already subscribed, please consider subscribing right now. And okay, let's go ahead and get into the tones and listen to how this thing sounds. Okay guys, so that was just a few of the tones that you can get from this unit. Now, something to keep in mind, and I mentioned this a little bit before, but this can be used for electric bass as well as acoustic guitars. Like if you have an acoustic that you plug in that you want to add some effects on. And that's not like, it's not like meant for guitar and then your electric guitar and then you're repurposing it for one of those other instruments. But I mean, there are bass amplifier models already built into this thing. There's a bunch of presets specifically for bass, and it's the same thing for the acoustic guitar. So if you don't play electric guitar but you play bass or acoustic, you're still going to be able to get a ton of use out of this. Not just the amp models, but also all of the input-output, you know, the USB interface, the looper, all that stuff. And I should mention, I'm going to be doing a review of a Jackson bass, I'm fairly sure about, coming up in a few weeks. And I'll be using this when I record the demo with that bass, so you guys will also be able to get some an idea of how the bass amp models sound on this. Now, one thing that I love about this thing, which is I think easy to overlook, is the size, like the footprint of it, and also the durability and build quality of this thing. There is almost no plastic anywhere on this thing. All of these switches, you know, the knobs and the foot switches and the entire case and everything on the back panel, it's all metal. And like I said, the footprint is great. This thing is really pretty small. So if you're using this on stage, there's very little chance that the singer is going to trip on it. And because everything you need for a gig is self-contained in here, you throw this thing along with the power supply and a couple cables, put that in a backpack, travel with it, go to a gig, whatever you want. It's super just convenient in terms of the size of it. Now, there's one other thing that I want to talk about here, and this is something that's just personally very important to me, and that is the fact that unlike a lot of newer amp modelers and amplifiers, this unit is not dependent on an app or like some kind of software program to really get the most out of it. Now, they do have that available for editing the patches and so forth, but you don't have to use it. All of the editing and everything, and you know, creating like a patch just from the ground up, you can do all of that just with the controls on the board itself through the touch screen and then the knobs and switches and everything. So I'm honestly, you know, I'm kind of I tend to lean towards the old school way of doing things when it comes to amplifiers. And when some of the newer amplifiers, when they essentially require that you have your phone hooked up to the amp and, you know, swiping around and dragging stuff just to get the amplifier to work. Some people like that stuff. I personally, it kind of puts me off a little bit. And the fact that you can use this thing just as a piece of hardware, you don't have to use any, you know, apps or Bluetooth connections or anything like that. To me, that really adds a lot of value to it. And I know there's a lot of guys out there watching who, like me, have that sort of old school mentality towards things. So I think, not just for me, but I think a lot of people will like that. Okay, now let's talk about the price. This thing is going for $399, right around $400. Of course, you can get it on Amazon or wherever. And they actually have you know, this version, and they even have a pink version available for all the Winger fans out there. And I do want to give a big shout out to Hotone for sending this to me. You guys might have seen I reviewed a wah pedal from Hotone, and then they sent this to me as sort of a cool follow-up to that video. And these are really like the first things that I've used from Hotone, and I mean, it's good stuff. Okay guys, so I'm going to put a link to this unit in the video description below, where it's going to have the full list of features on there. I will also have a link where you can check out Panos's channel. Again, great Greek neoclassical guitar player, and I basically stole that backing track that I used from him, so I want to give him some credit too. Now, I will also have a link down there for my new instructional program and everything else I was talking about in the video, plus my social media, all that stuff. Guys, thanks a ton for watching. Of course, let me know what you think of this unit down in the comment section below. In particular, if there's anybody who already owns one of these, I would love to hear what your ownership experience has been like. All right, guys, thumbs up if you liked the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you soon.